Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. It is Charles from the channel Books on Stereo, and I'm here to give you guys a final episode in our audiobook series. We have some brand new guests. If you haven't watched the first two episodes, definitely go do that because we will be referencing stuff that we mentioned in those other two episodes in this episode. So if you don't want to be lost, go watch those two before watching this one. Today we're going to be talking about one, how do you get into audiobooks? And then secondly, where do you get these audiobooks? In the first episode, we covered why we love audiobooks and the importance of them. In the second episode, we talked more about more the mechanics, talking about different narrators, do certain genres lend a little bit better to audiobooks, and just kind of talking more about the audiobook side of things. Now we're talking about how to get into audiobooks and also where to get your audiobooks from if that's something that you're interested in learning more about. And definitely stay tuned to the end of the video because we have a surprise giveaway. I won't spoil what the giveaway is for, but I will announce it at the end of the video and also a live show. So without further ado, I'll let my guests introduce themselves and then we'll get started.
Okay, I'm Shae from Shae Geeks Out. I primarily read romance and manga with a little bit of fantasy mixed in.
Hi, Nicole from Who Picked This Book, and yes, I am a romance reader.
Hi, I'm Bethany from Beautifully Bookish Bethany. I read a lot of romance, sci-fi, and fantasy, and a little bit of everything else.
Hi, I'm Jacqueline from On the Same Page, and I also primarily read romance, but a little sprinkling of other things in there as well.
Hey, I'm Bree, and I chat romance on Instagram. I'm primarily a romance reader, but I also love memoirs by women and poetry.
Hi, I'm Laura from Laura's Library Card, and I like romance as well as a couple other things, and I read about 50% audiobooks.
Hi, I'm Kerry. I'm with Book for Romance. So obviously I love romance. And yeah, I also read YA fantasy, and young adults, anything with romance in it. I love.
That's good. And everyone's links will all be down in the description box for you guys. So definitely go follow, subscribe to everyone. And so the first question I want to ask you guys is, how did you even first get into audiobooks?
My story with audiobooks is kind of funny. I was actually introduced to audiobooks through my husband. Like, I'd heard about audiobooks before we met, but he's the person who really introduced me to utilizing them. We used to have a long commute back and forth when we first got married, and we just found audiobooks to read together and some things like that. It's just been really fantastic. And so for the last 7 years since I met him, audiobooks have been a big part of my life.
Mm-hmm. That's cool.
I think for me, since I'm a mom of 3, it was survival of the fittest. I couldn't just sit down and read a book because my kids would look at me and be like, "Mom, you're not busy. What are you doing?" And I'm like, "Oh, nothing. Just trying to read a story. I obviously am free for you, you know?" So to be able to stick audiobooks in my ears and do laundry or cook or clean or whatever, it helps me get my peace of peace and quiet, obviously, but peace of mind too, and then finish a story. Or else if I read it, it would take me weeks to finish just because of everything else I have to do.
Yeah, no, I have 2 young kids, and similarly, audiobooks have been amazing once I discovered them. I think years ago, I had really only used them, actual physical audio CDs on road trips. From the library, and that was pretty much it. And then a couple of years ago on Booktube, so many people were doing it. I was like, well, let me try this. I can get them from my library, and I have not looked back. Now something 40% of my reading is audiobooks. It's great because I can do other things while I'm listening.
Right.
Yeah, I think I also started with CDs at the library. I mentioned it last week. It was a Patricia C. Reed YA fantasy with dragons and a badass princess, and I was like, this is my vibe. But then I want to say 4 years ago, I was working and I was just getting bored of listening to music, and I was like, oh, I should try audiobooks, and I got a ton of them through Overdrive at my library, and I was just going through them so quickly. I was like, oh, this is going to be something I do all the time now. Okay. But yeah, I listen to them while I work now all the time.
I remember, I think it was 2017, and all of a sudden everywhere on BookTube, people were talking about Audible, and I was like, what the hell is this Audible? I think what helped is like a year prior to that, I started listening to podcasts.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, I'll give this Audible a try. So I tried it, and I started with nonfiction, and it was just such an easy transition. And yeah, like both of y'all said, like as a mom, I was like, oh gosh, I can read it too.
Yeah.
And I just have not turned back since.
Right.
Yeah, I've been hooked.
Yeah, also just jumping on the whole like listening to CDs in the car or in my Walkman, like let's
that dates us. Oh gosh.
I know, just throwing that out there if anybody can guess how old I am. But
girl, you look good. You look good.
My hair was down. But yeah, it was just like, and my first audiobook CD was a Sandra Brown book. And I'm like, of course, that's just, she's still like probably my number one favorite author. So it just started. And yeah, like everyone said, haven't looked back. And then when the Audible train came around and I'm like, yeah, I'm jumping on this. And then when I discovered, you know, like you can actually get like audiobooks, just the digital library in itself, I'm like, oh yeah, this is, like you said, there's no turning back. I haven't turned back. It's like, and yeah, it's like 40 or 50% of my reads are audiobook.
Yeah, I definitely started similarly to all of you guys.
I looked back at my Goodreads from last year and I was like, did I only read audiobooks?
Oh my gosh.
That's the best way to do it, Bree. That's the best way.
Aside from like my graphic novels from Scribd.
See, I had the opposite thing last year. I'm like, did I only read manga last year?
For me, I didn't really start reading for fun until I was in like college. Because like I just like everything I read was like for school. I usually I became really good at skimming like a 600-page book and like taking a test and like knowing everything that happened in the book. And then having to fight with my teacher saying like, you didn't read the book. I'm like, I totally did. I know what happens. Like I get the gist. And I can make up what I don't know. But then with my little work study money, like I found like, oh, Audible. Like my family already had a Prime subscription, so I was like, okay, let me try this Audible. And then I would just listen to audiobooks like back to back to back to back to back, and that's how I got into audiobooks.
That makes sense because you like to listen to your audiobooks really fast, but like you're kind of already used to reading really fast too. So
yeah, so it was like an easy transition. Yeah, and I think a great. Oh, sorry.
That was huge for me too when I realized you can speed them up because I had so much trouble focusing because I read fast with my eyes and I would have trouble focusing when I would listen at regular speed and then speeding it up. I was like, oh, this is great. Okay. And it takes less time.
Yeah, that's one thing I've done with some of my big epic fantasy reading is I'll read the audiobook on like 3 times speed because that's really my reading speed. And so I'm like double intaking it. So I'm listening to it while I'm reading it.
Yeah.
And so something with a really detailed world, something like a Sanderson, works really well for me that way because all of that information is getting to me in one form or another. So I'm not losing things along the way.
Right.
Dude, I catch so much slack from people. They're like, you listen at 3 times speed, you're not really reading it. And I'm like, if I turn it down any lower, like I'm a daydreamer, I will zone out. There's 5 dishes in the sink. Like,
yeah. Like my average speed of listening is like 2 times speed for like most everything. With the high fantasy, if I'm not reading it with my eyeballs, I have to slow down to make sure I don't lose big details. But my average is 2 times, unless the narrator is just slow, and then I go faster.
Yeah, because that's a thing. That
is a thing. Not all narrators are created equal.
Although the worst kind of narrator is the ones that like talk quickly and then pause in between sentences. I hate it so much.
Those big pauses like kill me. That's the whole reason why I started to speed them up at all, because Audible has certain rules for like people who do audiobooks that they have to pause a certain amount of time in their together. And so when I found out you could speed it up, basically at 2 times speed, you're taking out all of the unnecessary pauses, and it's just like a fluid stream of consciousness more. And that's why like 2 times speed is like a good, it's kind of my talking speed. So it works well for me that way. Just on average, when I'm doing something else, 2 times speed works great for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think a good question to ask is, oh, sorry, no, Jacqueline, go. You can go.
I only like probably within the last 6 months realized that you could speed up books. And so I would like start an audiobook and be like, oh my God, this is so slow. I can't even. And I would just quit and start another one. And then I think I accidentally hit speed up the time. And I was like, wait,
what's happening?
I've only recently worked
figure it out. It's like,
amazing.
But it's nice. I mean, I'm sure we're going to be talking about speed in a minute, but like, I think what's nice about it is like, you could speed it up or slow it down, because there's times where you need to slow it down just to be like, what did they just say? Or what just happened here? Or wait, I want to hear that again. Like, let's go back, slow it up a little. And then you could speed it up for all those parts. You're like, I know where it's going here. Let's just,
if they have an accent, like a European accent or something like that, then it's like, turn it down, because I
don't understand what you're saying.
Yeah, 2 times I could still understand the accent. Faster I can't.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's actually a good point to kind of flip the question that I asked earlier, is how do you recommend for others to get into audiobooks? And I think we talked about how that kind of goes in conjunction with listening speed. So I'm wondering, what kind of tips and tricks would you give people who are just getting to audiobooks to like help them actually like take to the genre? Because not everyone likes audiobooks, which is crazy.
Right. It's
rude.
It's like a TV, but without like the TV part of it. So it's kind of interesting that people are like, no, but I'm like, just imagine the picture there and it's just like TV. But I think for me, like, I wanted to say something to like people who struggle to read. This would be a good transition to try to like do this and take the reading element out of it, so you could see what processing a story is like. And I grew up struggling to read, and for me, like, I don't struggle like I used to, but I could see how if I was a struggling reader, I would have loved to have something like audiobooks to just kind of like imagine the story and take that element to process the story and then go into reading it as well. And then, or follow the story as you're doing it, like as they're talking to you, following the story. So.
One of the things that I always tell people when they ask me questions about audiobooks, it's like, okay, try 2 different things. Try listening while you're driving your car, because that's something that's already like subconscious to you.
Right.
It's a really easy way to see if you can still digest the story and enjoy it, because most people listen to music or radio talk shows or whatever in their car, so they're used to listening to something in the car. So that's a really easy place to try. And then secondly is to pair it with reading a physical book. So maybe a book you're intimidated by, turn on the audiobook while you read it with your eyeballs and see if it helps you digest the story any better.
Right.
And those are really like my 2 ways to encourage people to try it, so that they can see if they even enjoy listening to a narration at all. I mean, 9 times out of 10, anytime I'm working in like my bullet journal here at my desk where I am right now, I have an audiobook playing. Like, I did all my big February spreads today, and I was listening to an audiobook at 2 times speed, just enjoying that while I was creatively doing something with my hands, because it helps me with my anxiety. So as long as I'm doing something with my hands, I'm a better listener. Like, talking with my husband, when I'm doing anything, if I'm doing something with my hands and keeping them busy, it does really well, and I retain a lot more. So it's one of those things where audiobooks.
My biggest recommendation.
Do something.
Yeah,
go Laura.
My biggest recommendation was to actually recommend somebody pick up a book that they really loved in the past. If they've read it, but they're just like, I don't know if audiobooks are for me, rereading a favorite story and getting caught back up in those feelings and the drama and the action can really help suck you into that format. And that's how I got my cousin hooked on. I was like, you love, this series, like, go for it. And so that's how she kind of got hooked on audiobooks.
Brilliant.
That's so true.
Another side step is some actors do narrate for audiobooks. We talked about this a little bit in this episode. But if you have a favorite actor where you love the voice, see if they've done an audiobook and listen to it. You like it. Like David Tennant's voice is fantastic. Benedict Cumberbatch's is great. Richard Armitage's is great. Like, find an actor that you love and see if they do audiobooks and listen to them and be like, yes, I like this, or no, it doesn't work for me. Like, that's a really great way to like open the door for yourself, is find an actor you like and see if they've done audiobooks.
Yeah, I love your point of like listening when you're in the car, because that's how I started. I started nonfiction on like to and from work, and I really do think listening while you're doing something, start that way first, and then I kind of transitioned into like sitting and reading with the book. But even then, like, I get antsy and I'm like, girl, get up and go downstairs. Like, doing something and listening, I think really helps.
Yeah. I think too, with the speed, there's people who get intimidated by that. Like, it's one of those things where like people are so different in their regular on the page reading speed and what they can understand. And so I think if you find your attention drifting at regular speed, try speeding it up, like try 1.5 and see how that goes. And then maybe try building it. But if like fast is too much for you, then you don't have to either. You know, I mean, like people are so different in their approach. So like, but I think that can be something to try if you find yourself distracted. And then I also actually think narrative nonfiction is a really good entry point, because it's similar to listening to a podcast or like talk radio, because you know it's nonfiction. It's not, you're not having to like learn a world or a plot or whatever. And I think it can be easier to get used to absorbing a book that way.
So
I feel like going off of that,
comment.
a nice one.
Oh, you're good.
I'm just gonna say, going off of like a narrative nonfiction, it's often easier to recommend, like if someone really likes a particular, like Tina Fey narrated her own book. Yeah. And so if someone really loves Tina Fey, to say like, Or
wow,
like,
that's
I
cool.
just listened to Megan Rapinoe's book, and she narrated it as well. And so sometimes that, even kind of like what Shae was saying about like if there's a particular actor, even if there's like a particular person or writer or musician that maybe narrated their own book, like that's a good way for someone who's a big fan of theirs to get into audio.
Right.
So I was just going to say, from what Bethany was saying, on speed, my husband is a speed purist. He will never speed it up and he will never slow it down. He leaves it at 1.00 speed. And that is just who he is. And that's what he enjoys. He enjoys the actor's narration. He likes the slow build. He likes it slowed down like that. That is what he enjoys. He likes to spread out and savor his reads. That is what he does. And then there's me, and he's like, how can you even understand what they're saying? They sound like chipmunks. You know? And so it's just one of those things where when it comes to audio narration, everybody's going to be a little bit different. A lot of us in the book space where we read so much, it's easier for us to listen to something faster because we digest stories at a quicker rate than people who just casually read. Most of us read more than casually. You would professional readers for all intents and purposes. Let's be real here. And so it's one of those things where everybody's like intake is going to be different. And my husband and I actually had a big long discussion about it just like a week or two ago about like digestion and how fast I read and stuff. Cause he's like, how are you even enjoying these? You read them all so fast. I'm like, I spend a lot more time reading than you, sir. You job,
that's the reason why.
I, on the other hand, on days at home and not working, I spend a good chunk of the day reading or doing stuff for my channel. So I dedicate a lot more of my time to reading than he does. So more books naturally. And a lot of the books I read are a heck of a lot shorter than the ones he picks up.
Yeah.
That's another thing. It's like, you know, the average romance book is about 300 pages, where he's picking up giant, epic Brandon Sanderson, 1,400 page tomes. That's what he loves. So, of course, it's going to take him longer to read something than me.
Right.
Like, it's just the elephant in the room, for lack of a better, like, description.
Word.
My brain is kind of mush today. I'm sorry.
Yeah, my husband says that all the time. Like, he'll hear, like, if I have my my Bluetooth headphones on like a little too loud, and he's like, if he's right next to me, he's like, "Are they even speaking English?" Like, I was just like, "Yes," like yes, I just have it on pretty quick, yeah. So, but yeah, that's also like, honestly, I wasn't, aware that people didn't know that you could like speed it up or slow it down. So that's obviously like a good thing to tell people too, like, hey, like you can speed it up, or you can, if it's even too fast for you, you can go down to even slower than 1.0, which I could not imagine.
I would not recommend.
But there
I would not recommend.
I know
that part.
Like fantasy books and stuff, like where they need it slower, and that's fine. Like auditory processing, it depends on like how you, I mean, like it's different.
Also, another deterrent to audiobooks, I feel like, is price point. Like they are a little bit more expensive than your typical, mass market paperback, or like especially like romance. Like that's typically mass market paperback, $7.99, $8.99. That's you're getting your books at. So going from that to either like spending a credit, which on Audible is, you're still spending that $14.99, $15 a month. So that's a big deterrent. So, letting people know that, if you get, your library card, you can listen on the digital library.
Assuming I think this is the hard thing, is like libraries I think are a great resource if you live in a country that has them, if you live in a community that has good funding for them, because like that's not equal everywhere. But yeah, I mean, I think for me at least, that's definitely been a game changer.
Definitely.
You don't have to wait for that.
Oh, sorry, Nicole.
No, it's fine. Well, if it's just getting stuff from the library, if it's available to you, like you don't have to wait for that, Audible credit every month.
Right.
So I'm definitely reading more than one book a month.
I would say for me, like in terms of listening speed, I'm definitely more the controversial, because I'm like a 3.5.
Your starting point
when you say 3, I'm like, I was like, my starting point for people is like, okay, I'll recommend you to some like dark romance, and you listen at 3.5 speed.
I can never.
I'm not because I can listen to 3.5 because some narrators are.
I do with some too.
Far too slow.
Yeah,
and it makes me focus. Like trying to pay attention makes me focus. So I don't judge you, but I don't do it all the time.
Right.
3 point something, but not 5.
I live in my comfortable 2.2 area, and I'm happy there. I chug along there. I'm not quick, but I'm not slow. I'm just chugging along.
I've been reading the Press Nicole books, right? And the library, the second book is like booked out for weeks. So I was like, I got to use script.
Right.
So mad. I was like, are we ever going to get through this book?
Okay, so I have not tried this yet, but somebody commented on one of my videos saying that the desktop version of Scribd, you can go up to 3 times speed. And I was like,
you can, but it sounds like you're in a tunnel.
Yeah,
so really?
It's not as crisp as it is.
I know that wasn't just me. I was like, why does it sound this bad?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's desktop for Audible too, because there was a while where my my Audible app kept crashing, and they're just basically like, okay, we'll try and fix it, but you can listen to it on the desktop. And so I did, and I was like, this sounds like I'm in a tunnel.
It sounds horrible. It's like the audio quality has to be there for you to speed it up that fast and be able to understand what they're actually saying.
I think all the audiobook platforms need to go up to at least 3.5, because there are some, like on Scribd, you can only go up to what, like 2, and then like so you need to have them all get there.
I'm pretty sure my library app only goes up to 2 as well.
I think the bare minimum should be like 2.75. Like that should be like the bare, like at the like they need to like at least get there. Like if not to 3, you know what I mean? Like I get like okay, you're going above that, but like at least get to that point, you know?
Yeah. If you're used to reading books at 3.5 speed, and then you have to go to a platform where you're like,
So what do you guys have platform recommendations for the ones that are at 3.5 if someone needs a faster book?
All I know is
Audible and Libro FM.
And Libro.
Okay. Just to throw it out there.
As I say, I'm pretty sure those are the only 2 that go that high.
I think I think somebody was saying, I can't think of it because I don't use it because I don't think we have it, but like it's like a library related service.
Hoopla?
Okay, I heard
Hoopla goes up to
Okay,
3.
so it's
okay.
three.
Hoopla goes to 3.
Hoopla,
3.
Libby, and
Hoopla goes to
Overdrive.
3.
Those are the 3 library.
Overdrive only goes to 2.
Right.
Yeah,
Libby
Libby only
goes
goes
to
to
3
as well.
Right.
Oh, it does?
Yeah.
Libby goes to
No,
3.
no, Libby, mine's actually updated, so now it goes up to 3.
My Libby goes to 3.
Okay.
I think it depends on your library.
And my Overdrive goes to 2.75, but I mean, I don't know. That's still under the 3 mark.
That's still that's low.
You find yourself not enjoying books
at
if you have to
2.2.
slow it down? If you have to listen to it slow, do you find your enjoyment of the audiobook affected by that?
That was me.
Yeah.
That was
I'm like looking at I'm like when is this gonna end? Like even if I'm looking at the book, I'm like, this is slow. Like, I can grab the book and read this faster.
Because you're processing too fast.
No, and I do, you know what? That's what I'll do sometimes is I'll switch back and forth. Like if it's that slow and I have the physical book, sometimes I'll like listen while I'm doing other things and then like read physically and skip over the chapters that I like read physically. So yeah. Yeah.
That's interesting.
And I do have to say, like, I think when Libro FM was just getting like when it still like was like relatively new, I complained in the email to them. I was like, there is no 3.5 speed. Audible has 3.5 speed. I'm like,
God,
you need that. You need to be
I was like, I'm going to
hey.
cancel my service. I was like, I'm done with Libro FM. Like, I need my 3.5. And then the update came out. I was like, now you can go like 3.1, 3.2, 3.1. I was like, finally.
So we got to listen to Charles. Make this happen. We got to listen to Charles.
I was like, I was surprised they actually listened to me.
So do you do them and Audible, or have you scratched Audible?
Audible has like burnt all the bridges with me. Like, we don't talk about Audible anymore.
I sent a message the other day. I was like, I miss Audible Escape. That is all.
That is right.
I miss Audible Escape just as much as anybody else. Like that was.
Yeah.
I loved it as a consumer. I hate what they were doing for like the authors and the narrators. So like
that's true.
I understand why it had to go away, but it doesn't mean I'm sad that it went away.
Well, and the Audible Plus catalog, they are rotating things out.
It's
like,
getting better.
No, but I had stuff downloaded that they got rid of as part of that catalog that you now have to pay for. Mm-hmm.
So if you don't listen to it, it could potentially go away.
Right. They could rip it out of your library.
Well, that sucks.
And here's the thing too, is I think this is kind of like, I would say newer platforms, because I consider newer like that 5 years ago is newer for like being the platforms. And I feel like they're all learning. Like the more we like tell them, I feel like they are trying to adjust their platforms. So I'm always like, Audible needs to bring Audible Escape back. Like it needs to come back. Like, so I'm always
I will happily pay double what I was paying a month to have my Audible Escape back. Like,
Right. Yeah, and I feel like
if they had charged us consumers and been like, okay, we need to be paying our authors and narrators more. Would you be like, if they had sent out a survey to us and said, would you be willing to pay more so that we can better pay the people behind the scenes? I'm like, have my money, take it right now.
Right.
Because I love the service so much. Like ever since they started it, I always enjoyed the entirety of it. I always had it.
I feel like they're really leaning more into their original content, which like honestly just feels good.
Right.
Like
it's the occasional really good original, but
Carabastone one is really, really good. And that was an original. The Carabastone Call Me Maybe.
Yes.
Yeah, that was good.
I adored that audio.
There's like a few that are good. I mean, and like The AI Who Loved Me by Alyssa Cole was pretty good.
Yeah,
I
really like that one. I really like that one.
See, this is when I ask, like, I wonder if I should even be paying for it, because I never use it unless it's like that one credit, and I'm like, oh, I really want this book. Let me download it. Do it now.
Well, I mean, you don't have to have the Audible Plus package though anymore. Like you can downgrade and pay less. Also, one thing I do like about them is their sales. Like they have really good sales where you can get multiple titles.
By the way, if you aren't signed up for Chirp, you should be.
Chirp.
Oh yeah,
Chirp is like for audiobooks. So you can always get deals, you can find them, and it's
I love
if you're not signed up for Chirp, you should be.
Okay.
Okay, I'm writing these down as you guys are saying them too, because people who do audio learn new things as we go along too.
Yeah.
So.
Well, like Audible just did a thing where they were doing all these like 2 titles for 1 credit, and they had, because I want to read them this year, they had all the Lord of the Rings audiobooks, which are really long.
Right.
So like I got those. And that's what I do is like I'll use my credits or sales mostly on like long fantasy books or books I think I want to reread.
Or like
so I missed
$30.
the Audible escape because I'm like, I'm not gonna pay that much for a romance audio.
Exactly.
And you know what? I mean, to play off of what Bethany had said, like you should always check Amazon first before you go into Audible and purchase, because since they're brother sister companies, sometimes if you buy the Kindle edition, they'll add the audio for $1.99. Do not use your credit. Like as soon as that credit goes, like you obviously you don't want to use it like that. You want to check all your places first, and it might be cheaper to buy than using your credit.
Those credits are precious.
They are.
I am very selective with what I use my credits on, because I only get 1 credit a month. I know they have options where you can get more a month, but I don't want to pay for that. Sorry, no, thank you.
Does Libro FM have a program the way that Audible does, where you've got like the credits or there's like the packages like Libro FM Plus or something? Okay.
Yeah, so Audible has more, like really quickly, Audible has more plan options. So Libro FM is $14.99 per month, and like that's the only plan they have. But from Audible, there's like monthly, yearly. I think you can get. I'm on the 24 credit plan where you get all 24 at once.
Right.
And there's like I think they have like half the size, but like Audible is like if you like since they have that plan option, it suits like if you're a high like volume audiobook reader. But I definitely commenting on what Bethany said, I definitely see like Audible either going to books published through their own publishing house, Montlake.
Right.
And like so they own all the audiobook rights and also originals. So you're gonna slowly start to see like especially a lot of the indie authors kind of get absorbed and like all their books are only on Audible.
That's
which
what
I think which is one of the things that Libro FM has been like kind of preaching against Audible, is that they're creating a monopoly on audio.
Jeff Bezos, surprise.
So,
I
one thing with Libro FM, if you have not signed up for Libro FM yet, if you use the code SWITCH when you sign up, they'll give you 2 credits for switching and some things like that. So, like, honestly, the Libro catalog is pretty good if you haven't looked into it. It really has a lot of options.
No, I really like them, and I get the like influencer review stuff from them every month, which is nice. Like a handful of like review copies, and they have some good options that come through there. Do you know, because I need to like actually use them more than I do, but do they do sales on stuff frequently or not as much?
They don't really do like they don't do like whole store like wide sales. What they do have, they have like clubs like from different publishers. So they have a romance that's sponsored by Avon, and every month they put like 5 or 6 titles on sale. And they have one for YA, business, self-help, and I think middle grade as well. They're like $2.99 ish. So they
and this is where Chirp comes in very handy, because they're attached to the title, and it's usually available on multiple platforms that way. So you can look into Chirp. I tell you, Chirp is a huge money saver if you're not using it.
That's great.
Yeah, it is.
Well, I think that's something.
Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say I got a copy of I think Sinner by Sierra Simone on Audible. Not Audible, on audio through Chirp.
You said
it
the
was
title
$2.
It
was like $2.
That's great.
A lot of times they'll have audiobooks for $1 or $2. Like seriously, like
that up like immediately, because for $2, that's like a steal. That's like going to a used bookstore and getting that used book for like 99 cents.
Yep.
Just download. Even if you're going to read it like a year or 2 later, just download it.
Yeah, honestly, take advantage of the sale. Like when you get, because Chirp, they'll send you like do your profile, you say what genres you're interested in, and they'll send you a daily email about what books are on like
Available.
And you can also just go on there and browse all of their sales. And honestly, yeah, it's like you can save so much money. It's like, I do want to
literally BookBub for audiobooks. So if you're signed up for BookBub, like you definitely want to be signed up for Chirp.
Have you all noticed that like some, I don't know if it's certain publishers or what, but like the Jasmine Guillory that came out, I mean, she comes out with multiple books a year, but the blue one that came out in 2020.
Yeah, Party for Two, right?
I was looking for that at the library, couldn't find it. I think I looked on Scrib, couldn't find it. And it's like, you're put in this position where now you have to pay for it. Like, I knew there was an audiobook. Right. And I didn't have a credit. And I just was like, man, for people that may not have the funds for this, you're kind of just shit out of luck. Like, yeah. And it's fine. Just pick up the book and read it. But if you enjoy audiobooks, it's just like, are they giving this to the library? Are they making it to where like you have to pay for it? Audiobooks are cheap.
Right.
Yeah.
No,
you can also like talk to your library directly and request certain things on audio.
Yeah.
Right.
And especially if it's a popular book, like there's a good chance.
And some of the publishers have been doing a thing where for libraries with like audiobooks, they charge them more and limit the copies until they've been out for a certain amount of time. So especially if you have a library system with less funding, they might not be buying all the new release audiobooks right away. They might be waiting till the price drops. So that could be part of it.
And then
but if you're specifically requesting it, they're more likely to put it higher on their priority list.
Right. I had a question for you guys too, because now Audible is coming out with Audible exclusive content. So like, here's one thing, like I'm going to show you guys a picture because I pulled it up. The Bridge Kingdom. I freaking love this book, but it's only Audible exclusive. So you can't get it. So I'm curious is if the libraries could purchase something like that, or is it just Audible where they can't? Yeah, exactly. So I was curious.
It's just Audible.
And it's the only reason why I haven't gotten rid of my Audible. There are several Audible like exclusives or originals, and authors do that with them.
Yeah.
That I love.
For the originals, but some of the exclusives you can get from the library. Like the Audible originals are only available on Audible, but some of the Audible exclusives you can also get it through a library. You just can't get it from other like sellers. Yeah.
I think one
like the Throne of Glass books, for instance, by Sarah J. Maas, they're Audible exclusive for purchasing, but you can still get them through the library.
Oh, that's nice.
I was wondering who would bring that up this time.
And I was like, as soon as Sarah, I was like, yes.
It took me a while. I was like, didn't Bethany just mention Sarah J. Maas?
Yeah, it was me, Carol. That was not me.
That was the last episode.
Well, I think one positive to the originals is like I'm trying to read through like the Harlequin, like Nocturne, like the paranormals, and Audible actually made a lot of them into audiobooks. So cool.
That's cool.
And they have the funding.
Audible actually listen when people like want a title in audio. Like they'll actually, especially for indie authors, they'll actually, if enough people want. I think the Captive Prince trilogy by C.S. Picard, that was like one that had a huge, and then audiobooks came out maybe like 3 years later after the trilogy was done.
I think they did a lot of Christine Feehan's books too. So.
It's true. Let's not talk about me and my Feehan obsession on this thing, okay? My first audiobook was
I think I'm the odd one out here.
Have you read the Sea Haven series? That's the one I'm reading. I'm reading her Sea Haven.
I've not listened to any of those. I've read the first one.
Okay.
And I have the others on my shelf. I just need to read them. I found them all at the used bookstore for like $2 a piece, so I got them all.
Wait, the audio
they
is
have
physical.
stepbacks too. Like it was a find. I was happy. The women are on the front cover, but the men are on the inside cover. We have them coming out of water. We have them like shirtless. It's fantastic. But anyways, but yes, my first audiobook was a Feehan book. It was Dark Gold by Christine Feehan, which is like the third book in the Carpathian series.
Right.
And oh my gosh. Because I wasn't a proud romance reader at that time, but I was listening to it in my car and I had the windows down, and then I hit a sex scene. Yeah, it was a moment.
Turn it
I
up.
got some rocks. We'll just put it that way, because I live in a very conservative place in the United States.
We looked over like, what's she? Over that far.
Turn it up.
And this one, the female narrator with this was very like, the screams were there.
No.
Oh my god.
I'm so sorry for you, Shae.
And then we were sold from there not out.
Best thing I've heard.
Yeah, a little bit.
Before I stopped working, like I was the only girl in the office, and so the guys knew, like when I had my headphones on, I was listening to a book. And they knew I listened to romance, so they'd be like, "Hey, we need your help," and I'm like, "Hold on, guys, I'm on a sex scene." Like, just give me 5 minutes.
Give me 5 minutes.
Whitney D at her finest, y'all. Whitney D.
Oh my.
Oh, that's fantastic.
So I have an interesting question for you guys. So like with all the different places where you can get audiobooks, especially because we already basically like talked about how credits are kind of precious, and like with services like Audible changing their return policy, which I got banned from returning books on from Audible. Kerry has too.
I have to.
You've been
So like now
blanket
more
ban?
and more.
Well,
Yeah,
it's one of those things where this is what happened with me, where I didn't realize, like when I was purchasing these, what I would do is I would purchase the whole series and realize I didn't like the first 1 or 2 books, and then I returned the series. But they didn't premise it like that. When they were explaining it to me, you could return, and they're just like, just buy the whole series and you could return it, no problem. But then I was turning multiple books. So then I was like, okay, fine. So I stopped buying series, but then at that point in time, they're like, so sorry. It wasn't really clear. And I feel like for me, I'm not a returner. So like they're making it sound like you could return anything, but it just wasn't, It was very
They basically changed the spirit.
They have a limit of how many you can return before you end up getting banned. And I believe the number's pretty steep. So
Right. Well, if you did what I did,
like,
if you're somebody who buys slowly, you're probably fine at Audible.
Right. So don't.
If you're buying in bulk, you're gonna have some problems.
Exactly.
How did you get banned? Because I didn't even know you could get you could return them until you told me one time. You were like, just return the book, and I was like, oh shit, I didn't know.
Yeah. Because I used to be the one who like I would listen to a sample, but for me, this is like leaning into my question. It's hard to tell if you're going to really like the narration style based on like a 2-minute, sometimes like a minute sample, and sometimes it's the beginning of the book, sometimes it's a random part in the book. So that's like part of my question. Like, how do you guys kind of navigate where you get your audiobooks from? Do you prioritize library first, or do you try to do like KU and get the discount? Or do you automatically go and buy the credit?
Then you go elsewhere.
Right.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, I'll prioritize library except for like long fantasy books. If I can get them on like Audible or Libra FM, I prefer it because I can listen to them at higher speeds. So if I can get sales, or like if I'm gonna spend a credit, it's probably gonna be on something where I'm like, okay, I know I probably want to own this on audio. I want to be able, like, if it's like a 25-hour audiobook, I want to be able to listen to it at faster than 2 times speed.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, well, seriously.
That would take you forever.
50 to 60 hour epic fantasies don't seem so bad at 3 times speed,
Right. Yeah.
True.
See, and that's why the 25 hours are daunting for me, because I trug along at 2.2. So I'm like, this may take me a week to get to the end.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing. Like, reading is not a race. You don't have to speed through your audiobooks if you don't want to. Clearly, Charles enjoys that, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that.
Charles,
I choose to not, and I have a husband who chooses to listen even slower than I do. So it's just going to be different about it, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with it. Trudge along at whatever pace is happy for you.
I'm definitely the odd one out here because I don't actually pay for any services at all, except for my tax dollars to the library. I don't have Audible. I don't have Audible Plus. I don't have Libro. I don't have Chirp. I never use BookBub. I literally spent $30 in all of 2020 on books.
Go!
Go, Laura.
We're not going to talk about what I spent.
Library card. Laura's library card. She knows.
How did you?
Yeah, we can't talk about how much money I spent on books.
$30 whole dollars
It might have been.
in the
It might have
whole
been.
year?
It might have been $40. Yeah, it
You
might have
mean
been
like
$40.
You mean like in the last week of 2020?
No. In the entire
Laura,
year of
fine,
2020.
That's amazing.
No, I just never. I just don't buy books. I would prefer to use my library, and I'm very privileged to have access to a really great library system that gives me. I have a lot of audiobooks that are available.
I want it to be better,
Yeah.
but it really just sucks. So I don't have as many options.
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of like you want to
So I'm like,
or buy the audiobook because you're supporting the author. But one thing that I've learned actually from Bookish Realm, she's a librarian and she does like an entire library series that's amazing. And I've asked her, like, COVID, like, how do we help support the library? She's like, check out a book, even if you don't read it, check the book out because you're supporting the library.
Yeah.
And I was like, you're right, girl.
Yeah,
So
this is
I don't feel
true.
bad about the like 15 that I have. I'm supporting the library. And the good thing about the library systems is like I have like 2 here in San Antonio. I have 1 in Houston, 1 in Chicago, like 1 back home in Missouri. Like support other library systems. Like I have so much access to books.
Izzy at Happy for Now talks about how she pays for out-of-state cards in some places to support more libraries because they have better catalogs than her local one.
Well, I know, like we're in the New York Public Library system, but the Brooklyn system, you can pay $50 a year, I think, to get
$50 a year to get a card.
yeah.
Do they have a pretty good system?
Brooklyn's pretty good.
I was going to say.
Yeah.
Izzy's checking out like all the manga over there, and I'm like super jealous because my library has like Sailor Moon, Naruto, and a little bit of fairy tale. And
well, I mean, this is the thing. Like, so many authors and like other types of creative people live here, so the libraries, like, you see a lot of that reflected in the library system. So,
yeah, I need to move states. If I want to do what I like in the library, I need to move states.
Oh man, I'm trying to move right now. Don't go down that road. Whatever you do.
My husband agreed to move one more time.
Right.
I think I recommend like starting with the library first.
Yes,
I always check
always library first.
Then I go on.
I like Scribd also. Like, I can usually get 2 to 3 audiobooks a month out of them.
Tripping.
Scribd is like
you get like 3 books, and then I'll have some months where I'm like, I listened to 1 book. What are you doing?
Well, I wonder if it's because like I have like 120 books saved. So like, because there are so many books in different genres that I listen to, I usually can get like often 3, sometimes 2, but like 2 to 3 a month. Like, it'll limit it, but I always usually have some left. So
Yeah,
yours not ever mess up because like sometimes I'll listen to Scribd. This is like the reason I've been trying to get rid of them, but I can't break up with them yet. I will be listening
pay for it.
I'll get on there like an hour later, and it started me all the way over. I'm like, come on. But I love them for graphic novels, so I can't.
Yeah.
So you can't hate on them too much.
I heard if you don't save your book, then you could potentially get more like listens, and also
then they're more likely to start you over.
Right. That's true.
So unless you're going to sit in one sitting and listen to it all, it's not going to work for you.
Right.
And then I also had someone tell me, like, don't finish the book, like put like a little bit like left, so it's like, oh, you didn't finish this book yet, so it's like it doesn't count it as a book against you.
That's not true.
Like, dang it.
That's not true. It's usually if you get, it's somewhere in between the 10 and 20% mark that it counts it against you.
Oh, okay.
I just remember when it came out, it was like unlimited access to books.
Lies.
You're able to return. They're all lies.
I was like, just be transparent. Tell me how many books I'm getting, and I won't be mad at you and keep canceling my script.
The thing is, though, like I like having it, and I haven't paid for it in a long time, and probably never will, because I made a review video with like a link of like Scribd and Amazon and stuff. So I wish they were paying me a commission instead of a free month, because like I think my next date that I would have to pay is in like 10 years.
Right.
Yeah,
How much
really.
you sold for them. Yeah, absolutely.
Wow.
I'm sure.
Because so many people have used my link to join up, and I get a free
I
month every time. I'm just like,
This is
okay,
why
well,
you need to get them to do a sponsored video for you.
I know they should.
They do.
I tried
Because I've
emailing
seen
them,
them
and
out
they were
there. I
like,
know they exist. They just need to get you to do one for them.
they should. Well,
Mhm.
I tried emailing them, hey, do you have like an affiliate thing? And they were like, well, no, but you can get a free month. And I'm like, yeah, I know. Thank you.
Like, yes, I have.
That's when you can say, can we do a sponsored video? Because you're already going to be giving me free months for 10 years.
Oh no, I tried that. And then somebody didn't actually read the email and was like, yeah, here's how you can get a free month for someone using your link. And I'm like,
Ah!
thank you.
I haven't a free month.
Right.
Or just
Yeah.
copy and
You all
paste your other
ever,
email.
You all ever like started an audiobook and couldn't vibe with the narrator and then read
Absolutely.
it quickly, and it was like, I love this book.
Right.
Yes.
Right. I
Yeah.
feel like narrators can also make
I was
a
just like, no, never.
like it's one of those things where like a narrator could definitely sink a book too, because if it's a bad narrator, you're just like, I cannot get into this book. And you know, you may think it's the book, but it's the narrator. So
I had that issue with the why can't I think of like the first book in this, The Bear and the Nightingale by Catherine Arden. I did not like it. I did not like the
That's slow.
narration. But
I didn't
loved
even try to do that one on audio, but I sat and read the first book in like a matter of hours. Like I got swept away in the writing. And it was beautiful.
great. I tried doing
very like purple prose, and I don't think that lends as well to audio most of the time.
Oh, I can do it on audio usually. I just didn't like the narrator. Like the
Is it
specific
the same audio
narrator.
book? Or
Yeah. So I tried it on the second book, and I was like, no, I can't listen to this.
right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think that's a good point where we can start closing things down a little bit. So I'm going to ask my question that I ask at the end of all these live shows. What is one audiobook that you recommend to people? It could be either your favorite audiobook or an audiobook that you think would be a really great start for people to get into the genre.
A really fun audiobook series is the Renegade series by Marissa Meyer. I really enjoyed the narration for both of the characters for that one. And so I think if you're used to reading a lot of YA books, that's a really fun place to start, because the audiobooks are just really entertaining to read. Or to listen to, I should say.
Right.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the Girl Meets Duke series by Tessa Dare. Mary Jane Wells narrates those. I think Mary Jane Wells narrates like a lot of her audiobooks, but she's just really good at just delivering that sassy, heroine that we just love, and those kind of historicals by Tessa Dare. They're just really, really good.
Right.
I think sometimes trying a book where an author narrates their own book can be really good, especially if they're a good narrator. So a couple that came to mind were The Poet X by Elizabeth Acevedo is beautiful. Like she does it, and it's a YA novel in verse that I love a lot. And then for like a nonfiction memoir that has some narrative qualities to it, In the Dream House by Carmen Maria Machado is amazing. She narrates it herself, and it's a memoir of an abusive relationship she had with a past girlfriend. But it's really, so it's intense, but it's really, really good.
I'm going to rec, I know we've talked about it at least one of these, maybe two videos, but Call Me Maybe by Cara Bastone is shorter. So I feel like if it's someone who hasn't read a lot of audio or listened to a lot of audiobooks, like it's an easier buy-in because it's a little bit shorter. It also is more of the like audio play than a straight audiobook. And so it's like maybe a little more interactive. So I think that's a really good starting point. It's also just like really lovely. But the other one that I was going to say is the Magpie series by KJ Charles is really fun because it's a romance, but there's also a mystery and there's magic. And so it has a lot of these kind of very engaging elements that the momentum of the story kind of constantly builds on itself. And the narrator is Cornell Collins, and he's fantastic. So.
So I got a couple. Okay, just a couple.
Go for it.
Wait, you made me think of something, Jackie. Okay, so for romance purposes, did y'all ever listen to Heidi's Guide to Four Letter Word?
Yes.
To Four Letter
I've
Word.
heard about that one though.
That's a good one.
Hilarious.
Oh my God.
So if you're wanting something on like romance, like, oh, it was so good. It was so funny. And then so the two that I like, my very first two audiobooks. The first one is, they're both nonfiction. It was called What Made Maddie Run by Kate Fagan, and she narrates it. It's about a young girls in sports and mental health, and she commits suicide, and it was just so good. And then the other one was called American Fire by Monica Hesse, and it's like this small West Virginia town, and they're trying to like figure out who's setting these houses on fire in the middle of the night. And it was like my first ever like true crime type of book, and I loved it. So yeah, like romance, nonfiction. I started with nonfiction, and it was like an easy transition. So awesome.
Yeah, wow. I've read a few nonfiction books on audio, and I don't really enjoy that format if it's not too dry. I definitely agree with the recommendations for narrative nonfiction. I listened to a bunch of Bill Bryson's books on audio. I really liked his book that was called One Summer, and it was like a whole slew of events that happened all in the same year. I think it was in 1927, and I remember just being like, whoa, this is so cool. But for a young adult fantasy recommendation, I just also finished The Daughter of Smoke and Bone, and I thought that audiobook was really great. It has some very atmospheric writing, and the audio was really great for that.
Okay, so I know we're getting into like February, so I was going to do a fantasy romance recommendation, and of course I already showed it. I'm going to show again The Bridge Kingdom. I know it's exclusive only to Audible, but it was so good. It was about a girl assassin, and she like has to marry the prince, and she goes undercover to go into his kingdom, and kind of like, it's like I'm the worst at describing books, guys. So just bear with me. It's like, it's his kingdom is fortified and there's no way to get into it. And she's like a spy undercover, and it's just, what is it?
You say impenetrable? So the word
impenetrable. Thank you. Yeah, like words and everything. They just right over my head. But it's really, really good. The cast is good. You guys will love it. Like it really definitely gives me that Sarah J. Maas vibe, which the whole assassin thing, which I love.
Charles is like, do not read.
But no, it's really good. I really enjoyed
The Bridge Kingdom is very different from Sarah J. Maas.
Right.
It's good. I read The Bridge Kingdom.
It's good. And the third book is coming out, I think, this year. So I think the third book's coming out this year. So it's The Bridge.
But it's following a different couple, so it's going to be very different. And I'm actually excited for it.
Right.
Can I ask one more question before we go?
Sure.
Do y'all ever like pick up an audiobook hoping that it helps you enjoy the book? Because I read my first Johanna Lindsey recently, and I was like, I gotta find this on audio because otherwise I'm not.
I know.
Which one?
Love Only Once, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Love Only Once.
Like, but I read the whole thing. The audio was great, but it didn't help me with the book.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yes.
I warned you, like that one was rough. That's the rough one.
I was like, are we on a presentation?
I've listened to one of her more recent ones, Temptation's Daughter. That one was actually really good. I really enjoyed that.
Oh.
I don't.
Okay.
I don't.
Nobody talks about her newer stuff, but I really liked it.
I don't think it really helps me like a book I'm not liking, but I will try to get the audiobook if like the pacing is slow. Like I'm liking it, but I'm struggling to get through it because it's slow paced, and like sometimes the audio can help me with
A lot
that.
of those older historicals are slow.
I just knew like if I try to pick this up without an audiobook, I'm not even gonna give it a shot. We'll do it. Thank you, lady and Charles.
Ladies and Charles.
Charles read it, and I messaged them. I was like, "Dude, you didn't tell me about this Johanna Lindsey."
Yeah,
it's bad.
I saw your message. I was like, "Oh, I'm sorry." I was like, "I'm sorry, Bree." I responded too late. But for my recommendations, I will go with the thriller. So Good Night Beautiful by Amy Malloy.
Ooh.
This one I cannot tell you the plot or anything because it will literally spoil if I give you like a hint of like what it's doing. It's a lot of plot twists. It's like really short. I think it's a 7-hour audiobook, multicast. Really it takes the trope of the missing husband, so kind of Gone Girl-esque a little bit, but it's really good. Really surprising, really cool and fun turns. And then I'll give it narrative nonfiction recommendation as well. I would say The Last Black Unicorn by Tiffany Haddish. She narrates it herself.
Nice.
It's surprisingly really funny, but really kind of intimate. And a lot of the memoirs that you don't see, like stories in that book will make you like just like
Yeah.
I could not deal with like some of the stories she was telling. It was so incredibly funny.
Man.
But those are my 2 recommendations.
We didn't even touch on thrillers. I think thrillers could be a good.
Thrillers are good on audio. Yeah.
Thrillers are really good.
And this made me
Unless
think
you're baby like me and you just can't do thrillers at all.
Same.
This made me think though, we also didn't really talk about doing novellas because that can sometimes also be good because it's like shorter. So like a couple I thought of, one I think I read because of you, Bree, actually, is The Headmaster by Tiffany
Rice.
So good. It's like romance was like super twisty, and that was really good. But then also if you want like sci-fi, The Murderbot Diaries by Martha Wells are really good on audio. They're really well produced and they're short. They're like only a few hours long, so that can also be a good entry point, I think.
And one thing you said, Charles, like if you find one with multiple narrators, like a whole cast, that could be fun. Like I would never pick up Lincoln in the Bardo, but that was a good audiobook.
That was a really good audiobook. Yeah.
Or like I just finished this on audio and it's like a full cast, like the whole series. Those are good.
Yeah.
I need to read that book. I haven't read it yet.
It's good. I just finished it. It's really good.
Prepare to be wrecked.
Yeah. Although it's not.
I didn't expect it.
I read so much dark fantasy. I think I expected it to be worse than it was. I mean, it was like there were sad things that happened, but like I think I expected it to go farther than it did.
Right.
I need to try and give that series a second try. I read the first one and the heroine did not impress me, and I felt like it was kind of expected for me. But it also could be that I had like come off something else that I loved and was not in a space to like start a new new book. So
yeah.
But I hear such good things about that whole series.
It's a good series. It's a good series.
But it's funny how much like when you read something affects like your thoughts on it. Like you could totally change
everything. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, so I guess I can now reveal like what the giveaway is going to be. So we're going to be giving away a 3-month subscription to Libro FM. I'll link all the information of how you can enter on my Instagram page. So definitely go make sure you follow me on Instagram so you can see that giveaway detail when it pops up. And we'll also be having, if you are looking for a little bit more audiobook discussion, we're also going to be having a wrap-up live show with a bunch of special guests on March 19th at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. And on that live show, we'll announce the winner of the giveaway. So you have to definitely make sure that you chime in for the live show in order to win the giveaway.
Yep.
But I want to thank all my other hosts on this video for joining me on this episode. Make sure you go follow them. All their links will be down below in the description box. They're all amazing booktubers / bookstagrammers / people who I wish would come back to BookTube. Bree. I had to
I just sit at home and I'm like, I don't miss that whole editing process.
Honestly.
I had to do that, but thank you guys so much for watching this video, and I'll catch you guys with a brand new video.
Bye.
Bye.